Welcome one, welcome all. It's once again time for Aaron Live. I am, of course, Aaron. What do you guys think? I'm practically Santa Claus. How long can this thing go on? I don't know. Yeah, I know. Ethan's got a big stream going right now, but this is my regularly scheduled time slot. So here I am. And if you missed me because you're watching Ethan, you can check me out in reruns. Okay. So we're going to move forward and just kind of go ahead and see what happens. I got a lot of stuff today. I want to go over a lot of stuff today. So we got a full show, very exciting stuff. And, let's get it rolling. Who's here? Not a ton of people. I'm looking at my numbers here, a little low this week, but, when you're competing against other networks and their stars, it gets a little tough. Kind of like I was watching this. I discovered this documentary called "The Center Seat: 55 Years of Star Trek," and it's I think it's on Amazon Prime. But anyway, it's like a documentary, and they're like hour-long episodes. And it started with the creation of Star Trek and Desilu Studios and that whole thing. And then it went into the animated series. Then it went into the first movie. Then we just watched last night. We watched Star Trek 2 and 3. And so I can't remember why I brought it up now. That's what they call getting old. Speaking of getting old, it's my birthday in 2 days. So I'm hanging on to 60 as long as I can. But anyway, so this show, which was really, really good, and it's kind of interesting about how there was fighting going on behind the scenes and the problems with Roddenberry, especially when it got into the movies and, other formats and personalities and egos and kind of fun things like that. So I enjoy a good documentary that with a sense of humor, and this one definitely has it. But it got me thinking about your place in any given industry. And because we were talking, the fourth episode, I believe it was, where they were talking about Star Trek 2. And Nicholas Meyer, who wrote and directed Star Trek 2, not credited for writing it, but he did take 5 previously written scripts and sort of took elements from all those things, then created a shooting script or final script in 12 days because they were up against it. And, it got me thinking, but we'll get to that in a moment unless I forget again. But so hang in there with me. If you have access to this and you're even remotely a Star Trek fan or a fan of film production or TV production, it's very interesting. I think you'll get a kick out of it. Now I'm going to bail after the next episode because then it goes into the next gen, which that means nothing to me. So I'm only original series only, and the movies featuring the original cast. Anything else? Anyway, let's see who's here. Creative Faye looks like she was the first one in the door. She says, woo, Aaron, live. Looking forward to next week's Graybeards. Yeah, Graybeards returns on Wednesday. Can't wait for that. We've been off for 2 weeks. It's amazing. Happy early birthday, she says. Thank you very much, Creative Faye. Mark Pengrin, Happy New Year, Aaron and Shelley. Thank you. Past Master Dan, this will probably disappear. No, it didn't. You're still there. Leg Kick's here because Leg Kick, of course, is almost always here. Past Master Dan speculating says, with all the revelations about aliens and stuff, it's only a matter of time before we see who and what Bigfoot really is. It could happen. I don't believe any of that crap. So, it's going to take more than that to convince me of anything, especially when the government is supposedly telling us the truth. The truth. There it is. Pantheon's joining us. He says, greetings and salutations. We have the chat have a suggestion to have a 10-minute segment of Shelley. Maybe I'd do like a filmed, 10-minute, 5-minute segment of Shelley and just drop it in. Maybe we should do that. Halder 6480 is here. Barbara Paulson's joining us. Thanks, Barbara. Henry Jeremick. He says, Aaron, please consider doing top 10 covers featuring artists every week. Kane, do so. Oh, that's a good idea. I like that. Okay. I'm writing it down. Thank you, Henry. Paul Taylor, hail and good evening. Paul Taylor, of course, is our resident biologist all the way from Canada. Henry's there. Paul Taylor says, Spider-Man is getting like Batman with all these extra titles. I remember being annoyed when Spectacular Spider-Man came out because then I was buying 2 books. I got excited. I got excited. I went to the, it wasn't a 7-Eleven. It was something called a mini mart. And I had got to know the gal that was like the manager or whatever. And so I would go in there on Wednesdays when the books showed up. I'm pretty sure it was Wednesdays. Where the comics showed up and they were in their bundle, and she would cut open the bundle and then she'd let me look through them first to take, what I wanted to make sure I got, everything in near mint condition. Cause you know me. And I remember seeing Spectacular Spider-Man. I had no idea it was coming out because I had no way of knowing that stuff. And, so I remember seeing it there and I tried to take I think she had 6 copies of it or something. And I tried to buy all of them. And she was like, you got to leave some for somebody else. And I went, rah, rah, rah. So I bought 4 of them. She let me buy 4 of them. And so I hung on to those for, I think I still have 1 of them, but I used them as trade bait. I mean, they're not worth a ton, but they're worth over $100 now. And I would use them for trade or something on different things. I kind of dug it. I thought, do 2 Spider-Man books. I mean, because back then it was they were still 35 cents or something, right? So it wasn't that much money. The Geek Easy is here. Yeah, let's see. Spaceman is joining us. I had a character called Spaceman once and never did anything with it. And then I think someone else has already done something with Spaceman, which, it's such an obvious, simple name. That's why I chose it. I figured no one, everybody wants to be clever. No one's going to use the name Spaceman. But they did finally. Mucky is here. Thanks for joining us. Jerry Rasco is joining us. Michelle Bowers. Hey, Michelle, thanks for stopping by. Daniel Russell is here. Daniel sent me a couple of gifts. We'll talk about that in a minute. Well, actually, talk about it now. He sent me, I don't have it on me, but it's downstairs, but a waffle iron that makes dinosaur-shaped waffles. And I mean, how can you not love that? So thank you, Daniel, for that gift. That was very kind. He also sent me a bar of Spock soap. It's mint scented though. I was like, who uses mint scented bar soap? You take a shower with that and smell like a mint? I don't know. I think it's just a novelty item. So I probably won't use it. I'll keep it in this little wrapper. But thank you so much, Daniel, for those. That was very nice. Gen X Catholic is here. Sky 79. He says, much love, Aaron. I hope you'll consider the Salem witch idea I posted. I can't even remember. Have I seen it? If I've seen it, I can't remember. And if I haven't seen it, then I can't comment on it because I haven't seen it. Anti-Entity is here. Sequential Artist is joining us. Says, greetings and happy new year, Aaron and Shelley in chat. Did anyone ever look at the old Star Trek comics by Dell, or was it Gold Key? It was Gold Key. And those are very valuable. Star Trek #1 is like a couple, depending on what condition you get, is a couple grand or more. I'd have to go check, but it's expensive. Yeah, let's see here. GJ Martinez is joining us. Thank you for joining us. There's Daryl Wayne. Who else we got in here? Sean Allen's joining us. Well, the crowd's starting. Oh, we got 100 people watching. So maybe I'm stealing some people from Ethan right now. Andy Dalf's here. Best Age Comics, Leg Kick for $2. I'll be the first to super chat this year. Thank you, Leg Kick. Appreciate it very much. Paul Taylor, though, is right behind him. Happy early birthday, Aaron. I finally figured out the SC thing. I just have to tab through it to get to the send button super chat thing. I was just hitting enter without going to the end and it wasn't working. Well, thank you, Paul. I appreciate it very much. And now we see I'm going to be expecting super chats from you all the time now. Spaceman was my nickname when I played basketball back in the day. Oh my gosh. When I played basketball back in the day, my nickname was Money. No, it wasn't. It was, they just called me A for short. It was just A. That was the best nickname anybody came up with me. Paul Taylor makes a very good point. He says, this is your regular streaming time. Ethan streams every day. He does, with reckless abandon. He's got a good crew over there today. I just found out about it, or maybe I would have jumped over there, but nope. Doing my show. Marcus Killergoose says, talking with 86-year-old dad, I'll be in when you're done. Happy birthday. Well, happy birthday. Thank you for that very much. Like I said, it's still 2 days away. It'll actually be when I'm hosting the professionals on Tuesday will be my birthday. So, Paul Taylor says, my basketball nickname was Your Cut, and I'm 6'4". Here comes Your Cut. Oh, that's funny. The Dawn is here. Quoth the Raven, Lewis Brightwaven is joining. He says, you look cold, Aaron. I am. And I've told you guys this before. When it gets cold, and I'm in Oregon, it's not that cold. You know, it's not like Minnesota cold or, you know, Nebraska cold or Wyoming cold or whatever. But it's cold and it's wet. And when I get cold, like, I can't get warmed up until the spring. It's the most amazing thing. So I like have a t-shirt on. I have this long sleeve pullover, Nebraska, of course. And then I have this this hoodie on. And then a lot of times I'll have a coat over the top of this in my house. And then I discovered if I put this beanie, the Wraith of God beanie, which of course is available on my website, it keeps my head warm. And when my head is warm, I'm less cold. Stunner. Took me how many years to figure that out? But yeah, I'm still pretty much layered up. There's Angela Chocolates Curry. She's joining us. Paul Taylor's bragging about his nice Canadian winter. Well, you guys are, what's it? Angela, I miss the rain. Are you kidding me? My daughter does the same thing. She goes to school in Phoenix. And all she does is complain about how warm it is. And I'm like, oh, what I would give to have sunny skies and warm weather all the time. There's Stealth X5. He says, hello for $2. Thank you, Stealth. I appreciate it very much. GJ Martinez, he's in Texas. So he says, I'm wearing my Wraith of God t-shirt. And probably that's it. He's probably like, yeah, it's plenty warm enough here. I'll just wear my t-shirt. Not me. I don't even want to know what that means. Okay, so as I'm kind of looking at the new year and thinking, what can I do to the show to kind of spice it up? Because I think I told you guys last week, Shelley was watching something on YouTube and looking at it, all the hits and the subs that all these channels had, and she said, people will watch anything. And I said, yeah, they sure will. And then she turned to me and she goes, well, why don't they watch you? And I said, because I'm old. And all I do is talk about comic books. So I mean, like, my audience is so limited. I don't know. I don't know if it would make any difference if I, started doing other strange things than we already do on this channel. But we'll see. I'm thinking about hiring Phil Diaz to make me a permanent intro that's a little bit more professional looking than what I've been using. Not that that would necessarily make anybody want to watch the show more, but I might feel a little better about myself. I don't know. All right. So one of the things we like to do on this show is remind everybody to subscribe. It's the Frankenstein is always in season around here. But anyway, yeah, hit the like and subscribe button if you have not done so. We're 7 subscribers away from 4,100. And gosh darn it, it would warm my heart to get to 4,100. So if you haven't subscribed, please do. And no, I'm not flipping you off. I was just scratching my eyebrow there. All right. One of the other things we like to do is eat. So let's explore that.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
I still have these Trader Joe's dark chocolate covered cherries. They're fantastic. I still have a few left, as you can see. I seriously, man, after my birthday here, I got to go on a diet. I can't even, I probably gained at least 10 pounds over the holidays. So anyway, we'll have one of these. But while I'm contemplating eating dark chocolate covered cherries, because, well, quite frankly, they're healthy for you. At least that's what I'm told. RFK Jr. gives it the thumbs up, I think. But let's see what Frazetta has in store for us on this fine day, shall we? We're still going through the Pellucidar series, Ed Rice Burroughs' Pellucidar series, which there's a lot more books in that series than I originally thought there was. So there's another one that I assume was the first one. It was called Pellucidar. We've looked at Savage Pellucidar twice, by the way, with the 2 different covers. We looked at Tanner of Pellucidar. So, of course, Pellucidar is the series of Center Earth, not Middle Earth, Center Earth books, or the Hollow Earth, where in the center of the earth is dinosaur world, where Kazar lives and where the warlord lives, if you want to make a direct comic reference. And so Frazetta did a lot of covers for these books. And I noticed on a lot of them, they were all kind of had like a voluptuous babe with a spear on the cover. I wonder what he was going for there. Anyway, I like that one a lot. It's got good color. I love, again, the figure of the girl. A lot of nice motion there. The saber tooth, and then you got the pteranodon things, whatever, flying in. That's a nice cover. I like that one a lot. So there you go. That's our Frazetta image of the day. Okay, so let me circle back to what I was talking about with the Star Trek Center Seat, 55 years of Star Trek. So Nicholas Meyer, a terrific writer and a terrific director, but he's not a household name, and he's certainly not, when you talk about great directors or whatever, you got Scorsese, Spielberg, whoever you want to throw in as your favorite director. And I kept thinking, look at this guy's resume. He starts off by writing a novel, which we talked a little bit about with Mike Barron last week, called 7% Solution, which was a Sherlock Holmes novel that was a Sherlock Holmes novel that had Holmes dealing with his cocaine addiction with the help of Sigmund Freud, right? It's a very clever idea. And then he adapted his own novel to a screenplay for the movie and got nominated for an Academy Award for Best Adapted Screenplay. And then his college roommate was working on a novel, or a college friend, I don't know if it was roommate, was working on a novel called Time After Time about H.G. Wells going after Jack the Ripper into the future, which he loved. Now, the book wasn't even finished, but he bought the rights to it from his friend, and then he went and finished it. He wrote a screenplay and basically finished the guy's book, and then allowed the guy to take his material that he wrote to incorporate it into his novel when he finally finished the novel. So, and anyway, and so then he sold the screenplay with the attached, the idea that, hey, I'm not selling this unless you let me direct, which of course they did. And it was a successful film. And of course that waylaid into Star Trek II. So he did the screenplay for Star Trek II, uncredited, and then directed it. And then of course did rewrites on Star Trek IV, and then of course wrote and directed Star Trek VI. He also did, which I didn't know, directed The Day After, I believe that's what it was called, that TV miniseries about the day after a nuclear holocaust, on the United States. Jason Robarbs was in it, Jo Beth Williams, some others. It was really, really good. And he got an Emmy nomination for that. And so you go through this list of credits that this guy's done as both a writer and a director, and you think, oh, that guy's pretty accomplished. That guy's really good. And it got me thinking. I was like, well, how do you measure yourself in a creative environment? Whether you're a writer, an artist, whatever it may be, in the case of my daughter, a dancer, or a filmmaker, right? Because you have people that have success and have done really great things, but they're never held up in the same regard as maybe somebody else. And I spent too much of my life judging my success based in comparison to someone else's success, popular success, notoriety. And it's like, I don't think you can really do that, because there's so many factors involved in what makes someone successful, more successful than others, beside just talent, right? If you have a talent pool of 1,000 people, and maybe they're actors or they're directors or they're writers or they're comic book artists or whatever, and there's only 100 jobs, right? That means 900 of those people are not going to get a break, right? And out of those 100 people, maybe 4 or 5 of them are going to get huge breaks that make them stars, right? But are they better? In some cases, yes, but a lot of times, no. It's opportunity and, perception and so many things. And so it made me kind of reevaluate what success means, because I have a great admiration for Nicholas Meyer, both as a writer and a director. But like I said, no one would ever use him in the same breath with Billy Wilder or, Spielberg or Scorsese. And, here's a guy that's extremely talented, that's done some really great stuff. So anyway, it just made me think, and I thought I would throw that little tidbit out to you guys and you can ponder it. As we're pondering, let's check the old super chats. Angela Chocolate Curries for $5. Thank you, Chocolates. She says, I miss the rain because it's 25 degrees and we are about to get 7 inches of snow. Arizona weather would be amazing. Happy New Year, Aaron and Shelley. Thank you so much, Angela. I don't know, man. I'll never miss the rain. We get it. I mean, you're in Washington. You get, depending on where you are in Washington, but if you're on the west side of Washington, I-5 corridor, you're going to get rain 8 months out of the year. And it's like, it's depressing to always look outside. Like it's 10 o'clock in the morning, not now, but when I got, around here, it's 10 o'clock in the morning. You look out, it's dark and it's gray. You go, it might as well be 5 o'clock in the evening. Where's the sunshine? I just woke up and it's a bright, wonderful day. It's not happening. I hate this place. But anyway, Sequential Artist for 10. He says, no pressure, but I'd watch you over EVS any day. Also, with your years of experience, you could bless us with your wisdom on positively encourage our communities through our comics. I'm all about positive spin. I'm a big fan of allowing you guys, the readers, the buyers, the fans, the supporters of various projects, to make your determination on what you like and what you don't like. And I have my opinions, certainly, and I'm very critical behind the scenes of a lot of stuff, but I don't think it's my place to step out and to critique other people's work, because I used to think that there was good and bad artists, and there is, but a larger category is, I like that guy's work, I don't like that guy's work. That doesn't mean that guy's bad. It just means that it doesn't do anything for me, or it might do something for somebody else. So, art is subjective. Obviously, there are concrete criteria that make someone professional or not professional. But once someone's hit that professional realm, there's such a multitude of styles that the best you can say is, it doesn't work for me. I don't gravitate to that sort of work, but you would never sit there and say that guy sucks. Or at least you shouldn't. And, we've always had this sort of public rule that, we just don't cap on other creators. And so I think that's probably the best idea. And I'm not saying I haven't, I have capped on some other creators occasionally, but I try not to do it. John Porton says, hello, Mr. Lopez. Hello, John Porton. Thanks for joining us. But anyway, that's just me. Everybody can do what they want to do. There's a wide range of content that can provide entertainment for the masses. So who am I? I would say, I think pornography is wrong, or certain things are wrong, but from a moral standpoint. But in terms of like YouTube content or something like that, and if someone, wants to build a channel on critical analysis, or they want to build it on, whatever, you're free to do that. And it's your guys who make the decision on who you're going to watch. So Shelley and I have often talked about this. It's like, what kind of content do we want on the show? And I said, well, we could do this, this, and this, but that really wouldn't be true to who we are. It'd be more like, it'd be fake performance art to try and get eyeballs. And it's like, you gotta be true to who you are. I think, there is performance art involved, obviously, to a certain degree, but you got to do stuff you're comfortable with, and programming that interests you, because then you can convey that deep, honest interest to the people watching, and then hopefully you get a better product. Man, this is some deep, deep stuff today. But one thing that isn't necessarily so deep is Wraith of God 3. Now, that is my current project that I am peddling, and I'd like to go over the campaign, because I have some, if you guys have not visited the campaign lately, there is some new stuff on here, and there'll be even more new stuff tomorrow. So we're looking at Wraith of God 3 Fear Hollow. We're at 73,989 backers. Obviously, we'd like to get that to 1,000 just for starters, but the Wraith and Esther face off with a Headless Horseman, which is a ghost, a villain from the Wraith's past, and some other characters from his past as well. And can he put the past to rest finally, or will the past come up and destroy him? These are complicated and interesting questions. So if you haven't backed this yet, this is number 3 in a series of graphic novels with the Wraith and his right-hand man, as it were, Esther, who's actually his right-hand woman. And they travel around the Old West and hunt down monsters in the name of God. So you've got 4 cover options. This is number 2. This is the EC variant, the 1972 box art Marvel variant, and of course the wonderful painted cover, which is outselling my other covers. No, actually, I'm happy about it, because I paid Chris a lot of money to do this. So I hope I sell some. It's a great cover though. So you can get any one of those you want, or you can get all four, which is what I always recommend. Spend as much money as you possibly can. That's my recommendation to you. Okay, look, we've got color pages. How about that? Jason Wright's coloring this particular issue. And so we're visiting the old witch here in her hovel. And then our guy, if you remember this guy, he appeared briefly in Wraith of God #2, Blood Hunters, where he sort of menaced the town sheriff for some information about the Wraith. And he's back. He's got a better robe. I jazzed up his robe. So there you go. There's he's having this face off with this witch. I don't want to show you too much because you don't want to give it away, but you can see some really nice colors by Jason Wright. Of course, this is pages from David Williams' backup story. If we hit 100K, we got a long way to go, but it's not out of the realm of possibilities. So let's hope for the best there. Wraith of God Nouveau print is available. This is signed and numbered at 500 copies. Once they're gone, they are gone. Wraith of God Roughs Volume 3, which is 48 pages of page layouts to the graphic novel. It also comes signed and numbered, and that number is determined by orders. And so once this thing goes to press, there's rarely any extras. So if you guys don't have this, you'll want to get it because there's no real secondary market for picking this up. There won't be any extra copies. You can get a shot glass. This is number 4 out of 6, a set of 6. We've had the Wraith, Garbage Man, Kit Carter, and now the Nightclub will be the 4th class in the series. Clay poker chips. These are the heavy ones that click. Commemorative set there. That's the Wraith, that's Esther, and of course you've got Dale Keown's Werewolf from the very first issue. If you're behind on your reading, you can also order Wraith of God second print with a new cover. This is the first issue. And then, of course, the second issue with Blood Hunters. If you don't want to wait, you can go to my website and order these and get them shipped immediately to you. They're a little bit more expensive on the website than through the campaign, but if you don't want to wait, maybe it's worth that extra $5 or whatever it is to get it right now. Anyway, both these are, this is the first issue is, I believe, 84 pages, and this one is 100 and some pages. So, you know, you're getting some value for your dollar, I think, in terms of content. So anyway, I wanted to show you guys that's what's cooking with the campaign. I'll show you a page here in a minute, and you'll find a link in the description of this video that will take you right to this campaign so you can back it if you haven't already. Also, a link to my website where you can get like all the stuff you've missed. Like there's Kit Carter Planet Doom graphic novels available. The movie posters are still available. The sketchbook, the Kit Carter sketchbook, still available, along with the back issues. And I believe all the covers from the back issues of Blood Hunters are still available. And of course, there's the second print of the first issue that's available on the website. So there's a ton of stuff, along with different prints and things that are not necessarily Wraith of God related, but just, you know, art prints and things that I've done, other books. So a lot of good stuff on the website. You want to check that out when you get a chance as well. Now, let me show you a little piece here of artwork. This is, what is this? Page 7. Now, this is the Wraith and some blackberries. Blackberries are sort of thematic in this story in an interesting way. So it kind of, the Wraith is here on the trail with Esther, and he sees some blackberries, which sort of jogs a memory for him. And we go back in time with our flashback starts right here. The first part of the flashback, anyway. I tend to not be a linear storyteller. I like to move back and forth from present to the past. And I just think it's more interesting doing it that way. That way you can reveal some secrets and then move on with the story, reveal a few more secrets, move on with the story, and then it all comes together at the end, hopefully, for one wondrous concerto of comic book goodness. So anyway, there you go. That's Wraith of God 3 Fear Hollow, folks. If you haven't backed, please consider doing so. If you have backed, tell your friends and neighbors that they should be backing as well. And we're on track at this moment to have this thing done in early summer. So that's ahead of schedule, although my release date, I padded it pretty well this time because it seems like every time I run into a problem with a printer or something and something gets slowed down, then I feel bad because I'm not hitting that date. So we should be fine on this one. But anyway, there you go. A lot of people jumping in here. There's Blue Boy. Alistair Campbell, Debikoff Schnelly, Maromi is joining us. Wildman Actual, Real Steel. There's Art T. Bear, Billy Tucci. Look at everybody. You guys must be done with Ethan's stream. So everybody's pouring over here. Yay for me. Oh, look at. There's Dale Keown, one of my favorite artists ever. His big Dale Keown's there in the chat. Oh yeah, we're just loading up here with good stuff. Thank you guys for joining us. Appreciate it. There's Katie Dead. She's looking for trouble as always. Tim Smith. Oh my gosh, I can't keep up. Thanks everybody for joining me. You got here just in time for the fun stuff. Okay, so where do we begin? Well, let's not begin at the end. Let's begin at the beginning. How about I acquired, how should we say this? I acquired an asset recently, and I didn't do an unboxing video on it, which I normally do. But being the Christmas season and having people at the house all the time, and I was trying to get, time to film something, edit it, post it. I just didn't do it. And the box was sitting there and I was like, oh, I want to open this so bad, but I got to do a video. But I caved in and I opened it anyway. So you guys are going to be the ones who get to see it right here on Aaron Live. But we're going to couch it under something I haven't done in a while. And it's called What Did Aaron Buy Now? I think that's what it's called. Let's run the intro and see. Sorry. Yeah, so what did Aaron buy right now? Okay, so here's the story. I bought this comic, shock, from Captain Comics in Canada, right? And about a day or two after I bought the comic, we got hit by the Canadian postal strike, right? So it literally 6 weeks later or something, the comic finally showed up right at Christmas time. So it's kind of like, oh, it's like a Christmas present to me. So let me show you what it is. I'll chat a little bit about it. It's Fantastic Four 122. Look at that, 9.4 off-white pages. And so you're saying, okay, Aaron, are you an FF collector? I'm really not. So you say, why this book? It's Galactus. It's got Silver Surfer in it. Those are good reasons. It's John Buscema, cover and art. See, it says so right there. Joe Sinnott did the inking. Galactus and Silver Surfer appearance. You're like, okay. It's a black cover, so it's harder to get in high grade like this. But it's a 70s book, so it's not rare or anything. Well, here's the thing. I collect Silver Surfer appearances when I can afford them. And I had already committed. I'd seen this at a convention and picked it up. Okay. That's FF 121. Silver Surfer right there. The Secret of Gabriel. Now, this is really nice high grade. But to prove you guys, I buy nothing but, or you guys believe I buy nothing but slab books. It's not true. This is not slabbed, but it's beautiful condition. So I picked this one up and I thought, well, I'll just get 121, 122, and 123 get the entire run of that story arc. And so here's another one. This came from Metropolis Comics. My son got this for me for Christmas like a year ago. So I had these two, 121 and 123. You can find them anywhere, usually in high grade, not that big a deal. But then I started to find out that getting 122 was not an easy find. People were overcharging for it because it was a black cover, and it was hard to find one in near mint condition because it was a black cover. And of course, the black cover always shows the flaws way worse than the other ones do. So I sat around. This one comes up, and he was overpriced by about $15, which doesn't seem like it's that much, but it's all relative. If I was spending $600 on a comic book and it was worth $600 and someone was charging $615, I might go ahead and do it just to get it. But when you're talking about a book that's worth maybe $130 or $140 and they're charging $155, you're like, that $15, that matters. So I offered the guy what I thought it was worth, and he turned me down. I said, okay. Well, then months later, he finally dropped the price because it was just sitting there. And then when he dropped the price, it was then within my price range for what I was willing to pay for this book, and I got it, but then it got hung up in the mail. So anyway, it took me a long time to find this, and I'm quite happy that I did. So now I have the whole run. But then you know what I found out? I found out that this is actually not the first part to the story. This character, Gabriel, that was at this period of time, which would have been 1972, because you can tell by the box cover. So that was Galactus's new herald, was this Gabriel guy, which none of us have ever heard of, right? And so that's actually the first part to the story. The problem, so that's FF120. The problem with that one is because it's the first appearance of a new Galactus herald, it's way more expensive than any of these. So I'm like, I'm not spending $400 or $500 on that book. So we'll see if something breaks and I eventually can get it. But it kind of is frustrating now because I didn't realize that was actually part of the story, but it is. And so now being a completist, I've got to get it. So we'll see if I can figure out the way to make that work. Everybody's going 9.4, 9.4, 9.4, 9.4. Yes, it's a 9.4. The ones that aren't graded, I think, are 9.4s as well. Aaron, why buy comics you can't read? Marcus, because Marvel puts out these things called essentials, and you can read them there. Why would you spend a ton of money on something and then trash it? Dude, that is not me. I am so conditioned. All my books, I keep, even, just like art books or any book. When my wife said, Aaron, I'm out of material to read, what have you got? I said, I got these thrilling Doc Savage books. And she said, okay. And I said, okay, you can read it, but don't bend the cover. That's just how I am. So I'd much rather have something in really nice condition. Plus, at some point, you don't plan on it. You don't want to do it. But let's just say you've got to sell them. I want to be able to get some cash out of them. And so keeping them in good condition is only the responsible thing to do. And just because Graham Nolan doesn't subscribe to that as being the responsible thing to do, I do. So don't fault me for being a conditionist. A conditionist? A perfectionist conditionist? Something like that. The Dawn for 10. Thank you, Dawn. In my own script, I'm finding it's not easy transitioning between times. Any advice? Also, much love to you and Shelley. Sucks about her pain. Indeed, it does. Me and Mama Donna keep you both in our prayers always. Thank you, Dawn. I appreciate that very much. Let me answer that question in just one sec. Hi, Aaron Lopresti. 9.4. Is that my new nickname? Deb Koth Schnelly for $2. Actually, that's £2, which is way more than $2. Thank you, Deb Koth. I appreciate it. It's not easy transitioning between times. It isn't. I always like to take a couple minutes or maybe a couple days, hopefully not a couple weeks, but to figure out clever transitions that fit into your story. And maybe clever is being a bit too congratulatory to myself or to yourself, but stuff that makes sense, right? What is it that our character is going to encounter that's going to push them into a flashback, right? Or what event do you have to set up that's going to take you into a flashback? And when you say transition between times, I guess that's what you mean, right? Now, for example, in Wraith number 1, we're about at least halfway through the story when the Wraith encounters the sheriff in this small town in Arizona. And the Wraith has just got the amulet, the werewolf amulet, from the old monster hunter who was attacked by a werewolf, and he burns his house down because the guy says, burn me because I don't want to turn into a werewolf. So he, basically torches the house with the guy in it. I mean, he's dying anyway. And so then he encounters the sheriff on the way out. And in order to get away from the sheriff, he has to create this like smoke cloud or whatever. He sneaks up behind him and knocks him out. But as he's creating this like smoke around him and all this kind of stuff like Mysterio, the sheriff says, your circus tricks won't work on me, right? So then they do work on him and he knocks him out. And then the Wraith says, circus tricks, you have no idea how close you are. And then we transition into this flashback where he's actually a performer in the circus. If you look at The Killing Joke, for example, there's tremendous visual cues in that book where obviously Boland drew it, but I'm going to assume that what's his face? The writer, the British guy that we all make fun of, the crazy British guy. What is wrong with me? Where the present scene transitions visually to the flashback scene, and then from the flashback scene back to the present. They're just very clever visual cues. Alan Moore, thank you. So I'm sure Alan Moore wrote all those visual cues into his script for Boland to draw, but that's an interesting way to do it. The cheap way to me, I shouldn't say cheap, the easy way is to say, that reminds me of a time when and then the thought balloons and you go into this. I try to put something in the story that's going to naturally lend itself to taking you to your flashback sequence. I don't know if that answers your question. I hope it does. I am going to do a series of videos on writing short stories. I just haven't done it yet, but we'll mark that down for as a New Year's resolution. Well, sibling bond, that is true. Sometimes you look at stuff and you go, this still isn't as clear as I want it to be. So you just say, like 20 years ago. In fact, that's what's going to happen here. Okay. So we have the thought balloons going out of the Wraith's head there, right? And he's holding the BlackBerry. And so you could say, okay, well, that's probably a flashback. But, I'm just going to go and caption in here 20 years earlier. Or 20 years ago. I can't remember specifically what it is. And then we'll do this scene. And then transition back to the present. And one thing you got to be careful about flashbacks as well is you can drag them out too long and then they become boring. So you want to chop them up, in my opinion. Rather than doing like a 20 or 30 page flashback, do a 10-page flashback, do a 5-page flashback, and give us bits and pieces throughout the story that slowly reveal the information you want revealed to your reader, and they put it all together at the end. That again, like in Wraith number 1, we had a flashback to Esther to give her kind of some backstory on her. And then we had a separate flashback for the Wraith to give some backstory on him. And then at the end, we had a little bit of a flashback to show how they met, or that how the Wraith manipulated circumstances to get her to join him. And there were 3 separate flashbacks. But I just find that straight linear storytelling from especially if you're doing an origin issue, it's like that can get really boring. So you start with your character in action doing something, and then do something that triggers that flashback or a reason for that flashback, and then we get the backstory after we've already done something interesting and exciting with the character, so that your reader is hooked and drawn in, and is going to stay with you at that point. Park bench. What does that even mean? Paul Taylor's like, he got the wrong idea when someone told me a new cell phone, he got a BlackBerry. Wait a minute. Should I just let that go? Nah. There we go. Okay. So, yeah. You can do the round corners. I always do the thought balloons going into the rounded, like cloud corners on the panels. And then I do the same thing when it comes back out. So, because sometimes you don't necessarily notice the rounded corners if you're not paying attention. And also Arthur Adams did, like, if you remember in Long Shot, he did flashbacks that had like little energy arrows coming out of the corners. So I thought that was kind of interesting for his flashbacks. So there's a lot of visual cues you can do as well, but within the context of the story. And then also coloring. You can always change the color palette. Sometimes like doing a black and white flashback is interesting, or a sepia tone flashback. So there's different things you can do. Everybody's jumping all over this 9.4 thing. I kind of feel like I missed something in the chat that's prompted all this. So anyway, there you go. Those are my thoughts on transitioning, and I don't mean from transitioning from a guy to a chick. I mean story transitions. Badoom. I should have booed myself for that. That was horrible. Boo. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Thanks for coming, everybody. Good night. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Of course, we're just starting. Let's go ahead and do my top covers of the 1990s. Now, I don't have an intro for this because it's generally Aaron's top 5, because I thought top 10 lists are too long. But then it's like when you start picking covers, like your favorite covers, it's like, how do I just pick 5? So I didn't even put a number on it. I just said, these are some of the covers that I remember from certain decades and that were my favorite. And that's kind of what we're going to look at. So we're into the 90s already. And I don't know that we'll go beyond the 90s because my comic reading really dropped off starting in the 2000s. At that point, I'd just be giving you my favorite covers that I've drawn. But anyway, let's start at the bottom and work our way up. These are not in any order, folks. These are just ones of interest that that kind of stuck with me over the years. Yeah, how about the old Death of Superman? It's pretty simple, but very, very effective. I remember this. Is this the one that came in the white bag and the black bag? I got the black bag. No, the white bag is when Superman returned. The black bag is when he died, right? So yeah, I got the black bagged edition of this someplace. But it always made it hard because you're like, do I open up the bag? Like, and then people were taking around and they'd get like Dan Jurgens or whatever to sign the bag, the black bag. And it wasn't even signed on the cover because you're like, if I open up the bag, then it's not going to be a near mint anymore. I don't know. But I think there's like probably over 1 million copies of these floating around, and they're all in near mint condition, so it doesn't really matter, I guess. But again, a pretty iconic cover, really. It's hard for me to use the word iconic for something that came out in the 90s, but then the 90s were like 30 years ago now. So I guess you can say it's iconic because it's been around forever. Yeah, Paul's like, this was featured on the news, I remember. Like, he wasn't coming back. They obviously don't understand nobody stays dead in comics except Uncle Ben. Used to be Bucky too, but Winter Soldier, yeah. Literally nobody stays dead. You can bring him back at any time. And we've all seen that a gazillion times. Now, this is interesting here. This is 1999, so I was just able to get one of these in here because I was looking at Adam Hughes's covers from Justice League, and I said, well, there's a couple in there I really like, but they were like late 80s, so I couldn't use those. And then you start looking at his 90s covers, and he was kind of, I mean, he did that too, Gen 13. I don't know if you call it a miniseries. It was a 2-issue thing that he did. And the covers were good, but they weren't, memorable necessarily. They were just well done, but they weren't, and so I started looking, well, what about his Wonder Woman covers? And what about this? And then it was like, when he really started cooking, it was like in the 2000s. So just to find a, Ghost, of course, he did in the 90s. But to find a cover that was really one that stood out to me, this is one. I love this cover. Yeah, good old Adam. Don't you just hate people with talent? Look at that. Now, the one thing I always say about Adam's women, I wish he drew them with a little bit more hips. But, his faces are, oh my gosh, they're so good. And his coloring, he's also the best colorist in comics, right? It's one thing to be, oh, you're one of the best artists, or you are the best artist. And oh yeah, you're a really good inker too. But oh yeah, you're also the best colorist in comics. It's like, it's just, yeah. So really nice Wonder Woman cover there by Adam. One of many, but this was my favorite of the ones that came out in the 90s. In fact, if I did my favorite covers from the 2000s, they'd probably all be Adam Hughes covers. But yeah. It always cracks me up when people say, oh, Adam Hughes, I don't think he's that great. And I'm just like, what? But again, back to the old argument, right? Art is subjective. And I actually had someone say, oh, no, you're just as good as Adam. And I went, thank you so much. I paid him $20, but then laughed. Okay, now, is Dale still around? Because Dale was another one. There was some of his Hulk covers I really liked, but a lot of them were in the 80s. This one, I believe, was 1990, so it just made it in. But I really loved this whole run with Peter David. There's a lot of good covers in Dale's run on the Hulk. But this is the one that I remember going, oh, that is really cool, because I like the concept of it, right? You've got the Green Hulk ripping through half of Banner and half of the Gray Hulk. So there was all this whole psychological drama going on. But yeah, there's very few contemporary artists that I was looking at going, oh, I hate that guy because he's so good. And Dale was one of them. And Dale's a guy that I kind of borrowed some techniques from, which I didn't do on contemporary artists rarely at all. Adam Hughes is one, Travis Charest is another one, Kevin Nolan a little bit. But other than that, and then Dale, I just really like Dale's work. And so anyway, this was one of my fave covers. Speaking of our good buddy Dale, how can we forget this gem? Is this the ultimate close-up cover? Look at that lighting source on there. Look at that. God, look at the inks on this. Gee, many Christmas. But you got that dual light source. I mean, this is fantastic. Now, I kind of did something very similar to this with Sludge #1. But I guess I was imitating Dale a little bit there. Now, I would have bought Pitt no matter what, and I did, but, really nice way to start the first issue. That's killer stuff. Now, this one is infamous, but it's Bart Sears Turok #1. Remember, this came out, and it was like sold like, or I shouldn't say sold, retailers ordered like 2 million copies of this book. And then they got stuck with them because they couldn't sell them. But I'm sure that Bart got a really nice royalty check off that. But it was really cool. If you guys read the first issue, first couple issues were great that Bart was working on. I don't know how long. He didn't stay on it very long. But I was a big, big, big fan of Bart Sears' work in Justice League Europe. And then, you know, he did a little bit of Image stuff and did a little bit of Turok, did a little bit of Exo Man of War. That story with that he drew that Ron Mars wrote, it was a barbarian story, but then it ended up taking place in, spoiler alert, Exo Man of War's head. Great. Great art, great story. But yeah, an outstanding cover by Bart Sears. Now, I could not leave out my Star Trek buddy, Ron Garney. And so we're going to go with this Captain America cover. I love the cover where Cap is a Super Skrull, and there was a really cool close-up of Red Skull by Adam Kubert, though. And of course, Ron had some good Hulk stuff too. I think was in the 90s. It might have been the early 2000s. But this I know was in the 90s. Now, I tried to get this gig, but they gave it to Ron. So, I was bitter. But then when I saw his work, I was like, oh, he's better than I am. So he's doing a better job than I would have. At least back then. Now, Ron, look out, buddy. Look out. Henry Jeremick says Bart Sears did some very cool Conan portfolio as well. Yes, he did. That was awesome. That Conan portfolio was killer. But anyway, I like this. It's just a dynamic, that use of the black there to, this was a great run. Garney's run on this comic, of course, written by Mark Waid, was great Captain America stuff. Really, really was great. And it was one of the books I was reading regularly. Now for maybe one of the covers from one of the comics that changed comics a little bit. That's Marvels. It's written by Kurt Busiek, of course, illustrated by Alex Ross, and the covers by Alex Ross. Now I'm a big Spider-Man fan. Love the Green Goblin. Still angry that they killed Gwen Stacy. So this cover sort of resonates with me. But you remember the first time you picked up Marvels with that Alex Ross art in it, and you were just like, what? And that was the early 90s, and it was pretty doggone exciting stuff. And out of all the covers, this was easily my favorite. Lepresti Inc. second to none. Thanks, Marby Dog. Wait a minute. Who said that? Wait a minute here. Hang on a second. Someone said in here, I just missed it, said they alternated with Bart on, where is that now? Did I read that right? It just kind of flew by, and it said that I alternated with Bart on. I'm sorry. I'm looking for that tweet because I kind of went over it and I lost it. Basically, I thought someone in the chat said they alternated with Bart Sears on Exo Man of War. Maybe I read it wrong. But if that's what someone said, please put it up again because I can't find it now. No, I can't find it. Unbelievable. Let's see. Oh, it was Andy. Okay. It was Andy said that? Okay. There you go. That makes sense. Andrew Smith. Andy, of course, a good friend of the show's. All right. Speaking of Alex Ross, we can't exactly forget this one, can we? This was, again, our good friend Mark Wade, who you can say whatever you want about Mark. He's a heck of a comic book writer. I will give him that. And this was a really good series, although I thought the biblical references were mishandled. I don't like it when people, they use lines out of the Bible or they use stuff out of the Bible and then they don't really pay it off correctly. It's like, oh, we'll be clever and use this, but then it doesn't really thematically pay off, or they misuse it to represent something that it was never intended within the biblical sense of how it was used in the Bible. And it's kind of like, well, if that's your definition, then how can you stray from that and have it make any sort of literary sense? It was like, what was that dumb movie that M. Shyamalan and I Ding Dong wrote, where the devil was in this elevator? Do you remember that stupid movie? And so you got this guard watching the video monitor inside this elevator that's apparently controlled by the devil or whatever. And he's sitting there spewing this like devil mythology that he got. Okay, this guy's an expert on this, on devil mythology, this security guard. But it's like, it's M. Night Shyamalan, Ding Dongs. It's his mythology that he made up for the movie. And it's like, there's no reference for that anywhere. It's just he's making it up and we're supposed to accept it. And I was just like, that's so dumb. If you're gonna use the devil, where do we have concept of the devil from? The Bible. So use the devil in the Bible and use that in your story. Don't make up something that no one has any frame of reference for. And I kind of felt like in Kingdom Come, they took certain things, Magog and things like that, out of the book of Revelation and out of prophecy books, and then misapplied it. And it sort of annoyed me, but maybe just because I knew the source material. But anyway, I could rant about stuff like that. Aaron, why are you not on any of this campaign launch? Well, first of all, I didn't know about it. And number two, this is my time slot for the show. So I do my show. I just found out about it like minutes before I was going to go on air for this show. That is why. But I do recommend everybody, if he's still going over there, to back his project. Kevin Thomas. Kevin, I shipped out your book to you. Hopefully your mailman will weather the weather. See, now Art of Roy is confessing that he's just messing with me, trying to get me fired up. But I'm not sure what Ethan's launching, but you should back it. Whatever it is, because I'm sure it's good. Okay, so let's move along here. Now, this is odd for me to pick this, but Liefeld inked by McFarlane. You gotta appreciate the combination of superstar artists at that time. And honestly, it's a pretty good cover. Big figure. You got your insets there. I'm usually not a big fan of that, but I think it works. I think the composition's good on this. What can I say? You know, I think it turned out pretty well. So I'm putting it on the list. There you go. There's my shout out to Rob and Todd. Two guys I've never met. I have met Todd, but he wouldn't know who I is. I don't think. Sequential artist for 10. Thank you. There is a comic story to be written that conveys the felt reality caused by the continuity fixing events like Crisis on Infinite Earths. Ironically, it destroyed the reader's own universe. That's some deep thinking right there. Good luck getting DC to do it, though. David Williams had this idea that we talked about once for how to fix the DC universe, and it's brilliant. But of course, it'll never get done. But it's brilliant, and I can't tell you what it is because it's his idea, not mine. Okay, how about this one? This is is this the most iconic cover of the 90's? Could be. I remember I saw this come out and I was like, oh, and I don't read X-Men. I don't buy X-Men. But I bought this because the collector in me was like, are you kidding? I mean, I'm a Captain America fan, but it's like, okay, Jim Lee drawing Captain America and Wolverine teaming up. I was like, this is going to be worth money. So of course I have a nice near mint copy of it, and it's not slabbed, so I can look at it anytime I want. It has that great splash page of Captain America by Jim Lee. And I thought the interesting thing about this is early Jim Lee, where you could really kind of see the Arthur Adams influence on his work. And then he kind of, of course, Jim used a lot of different influences at different times. He did a series like, was it Death Blow, where he's kind of doing that Frank Miller riff. And, but yeah, this is a great comic and a great comic cover. One of my all-time faves. Now, how about this one? You guys remember this? Now, I was not a reader of this Ghost Rider, but I remember this cover came out. I bought one because I thought it was so cool, that glow in the dark. And that was great. And that's Tex Area, who just... Now, I remember when Ghost Rider #1 came out, and it was Javier Salatares, I believe is you pronounce his name, inked by Tex, right? And everybody thought that Javier Salatares was a genius. And then it turned out that it was Tex that was the genius. Not that Javier is not a good artist. I'm just saying that what he did over the top of Javier was, he took over the book. It's kind of like giving your artwork to Rudy Nebres and then trying to take credit for how it looks. So then we all discovered, like I said, when Tex started doing his own thing, we're like, oh, that's why that looks so cool. But anyway, again, not to disparage anyone, but to compliment Tex. Really great stuff he was doing at that time. I don't know what he's up to now, but that was the good old days for sure. And then let's see. I think there's one other. What? Hey, whoa! How did that get in there? I had to put something I did in there, right? Actually, most of my good covers are in the 2000s, but this was. If you were looking for some rights and influence, there you go. Gary Martin inked this. This is one of those covers that I wish I'd inked myself, just so I could say it was all mine. Not that Gary did a great job. I'm not suggesting he didn't, but what I'm saying is that this is one of those moments. This book is one of those moments where I wish I'd done everything in the book, and yeah, I remember I had to sell this cover and the splash page from this. Which I did ink because we had some deadline problems or something, or Gary got another gig and so he couldn't finish it. I can't remember because this was kind of near the end of CrossGen. This is near the end of Malibu Ultraverse before they went under or sold to Marvel. So paychecks were getting kind of slim, and so people were looking elsewhere. But so I did ink some of this, but I had a period of time after Tachyon where I was not hireable. And so I had to sell some original artwork, and I had to sell this cover and the splash page from it, which I wish I had back. But what are you going to do? It's gone now. I probably sold this cover for like $200 too. Ugh. Of course, nothing's as bad as like guys like Dale, who has to sit and watch his Hulk covers go for $100,000, and he didn't sell them for that. But that's just what happens. We have no way of knowing, if your artwork's going to blow up or not. No, Angela, I did not lick the toxic cover, but here, this is for you. I don't like to blow up people that give me candy, but boy. Yes, indeed. Okay. Let's take a look, since we're looking at artwork. I mean, that's pretty much what we do on this show anyway, right? Where's that thing at? Here we go. So Shelly and I got a new bed because the bed we've been sleeping on is like 100 years old. And we thought, why does my back hurt every morning when I get up? So anyway, we bought a new bed, and I had to pull some stuff out from underneath the bed so I could take out the old bed and bring in the new bed. And of course, what I pulled out was this huge bag of old artwork. And so I thought, let's have a little fun here and make fun of, oh, there's a bad drawing on the back. Look at this. This is from 1983, which means I was 19 years old. So definitely not a savant by any stretch of the imagination, but a guy with maybe with a little bit of promise. The inking is really clunky in spots, and the muscle articulation is really bad. Look at these the pectoral muscles were glued on, but hey, I did watercolor it though. And look at those Wrights and rocks right there, or at least my attempt to do some sort of Wrightson-ish rocks. This is 19-year-old Aaron Lopresti when he still had hair, dreaming of big things. So there you go. This. Sean Allen, 250 confirmed. Yeah, no. He skipped leg day. Yeah. Michael says, nice bosoms. Indeed. The artwork was hurting my back. That's right. Now, actually, if the artwork had been a big enough stack, it would have given me lower back support. So that's kind of how I look at it. Marby Dog says, lost your hair, but grew your art. Okay, I'll take that. Says, did the character have a name? I don't know. I've got all kinds of barbarians and fantasy characters because, as I told you guys many times, that's the era I grew up in the 70s. That's what was big, was fantasy and sword and sorcery type stuff. So I was really into that. And, of course, the monsters from the Wrights and stuff. So I was never a huge superhero guy, which is really odd. I mean, I read superhero comics, but when I was drawing stuff, I always felt like, even at a young age, I felt like fantasy work, sword and sorcery, that type of stuff lent itself to more illustrative, detailed work than superhero stuff, which I always felt was more stylized. And so when I was drawing, I always wanted to be this illustrator, it was very pretentious feelings. And so I would always draw this type of material because I felt it was more artistic. So anyway, yeah, there you go. Exploring watercolors with some Nordic, Viking guy that, can you imagine you're dressing like that, like somehow this woolly cape is going to keep you warm in the frosty cold. You got the snow here on the ground. And then I do female characters the same way. They got like their iron bikini on, their metal bikini on, and then like a fuzzy cape, like that's going to keep them warm. But, the world of fantasy. Because I never pursued it because I was too busy pursuing comics. It's one thing if you break into comics and you're like an overnight sensation, like, J. Scott Campbell or Arthur Adams or somebody like that. Then you you peak out much earlier and you start going, oh, let's explore some other avenues. But I always felt like I was never quite there. I was never comfortable in this industry. And meaning that I was always looking over my shoulder for the next job. I never felt like, except when Dan DiDio was at DC, I knew he would take care of me, which he did. But I still never felt like I got my art didn't get the respect that I was always hoping that I would get for it. And so I never felt like my work was good enough in comics. And so I was always spending my focus, energy on improving my comic work. And as a result, I didn't paint as much as I should have. And when I could have been perfecting those skills and then made it, maybe, done some gaming art and things like that. But it was like, once I got that sort of, I've got to achieve a certain level in comics before I leave comics or quit comics. And I never got there. So if I had to go back and do it again, I would probably branch out a little bit more, but I got so obsessed and fixated on being super successful in comics that I had to conquer that hill before I went someplace else. And that I'm over that now, but but yeah, that's probably a decent explanation of why I never got into that other or tried to get into that other stuff. I have spoken openly about doing a black and white Savage Tales type magazine. But with crowdfunding at the moment seeming to be kind of down a little bit, makes me apprehensive about doing it. And, how well would it sell? And then I'd be working with other artists and writers, to do an anthology type thing. Like a black and white Savage Tales magazine, right? I'd be working with probably a couple other people to have them contribute. And so then you got to make sure, oh my gosh, am I going to raise enough money that I can pay these people for their contributions? And, it gets a little tricky. I mean, I could do all the artwork in this, but it's kind of like, it'd be much more fun to have a variety of stories in there. But it's not out of the realm of possibility. Freakaboogie says, yes, looking forward to your sword fantasy book. I may do that next. I'm really, really, really thinking about doing that next, the sort of Lord of the Rings type thing that I have sitting here before going on to the next Wraith, or maybe the final Wraith. We'll see what the numbers dictate on this this issue of Wraith. So there you go. Marby Dog says, did you ever draw for Conan? Yes, you are every bit as good as you. Oh my gosh. And your compositions are much more complex. That is Marby Dog. Your check's in the mail. That's very nice. Thank you for saying that. Yes, I did. I did an issue of Dark Horse Presents that has the Conan cover on it when Dark Horse had the Conan license. So this would have been, I was working at DC. So it was just before Marvel got the Conan rights back on their second go round. And so it's probably 10 years ago now, but I wrote and drew a Conan short story It was inked by Matt Banning. Inked it, and I did the cover for it. I think I want to say it was Dark Horse Presents 24 or 27, something like that. But if you Google Lopresti, Conan, Dark Horse, it'll come up. And then I also did Wonder Woman Conan miniseries with written by Gail Simone and inked by Matt Ryan. It turned out really well. I was very pleased with that. So those, I think, are the only two Conan stories I've done, but I have done them. So now I did do Red Sonja covers for Dynamite several years ago. I did a couple of them were painted actually. Well, they were inked and then painted with watercolor. And the rest of them were digitally colored by me. I think there's 5 or 6 of them. I can't remember the miniseries title. It had something to do with Thulsa Doom or something. I'm not sure. But again, if you Google search me and Red Sonja, it should come up. Oh, I did a Red Sonja Tarzan series of covers for Red Sonja Tarzan for Dynamite as well. Now they don't like me because I'm politically incorrect. But back then they loved me. And they didn't pay well, but I would always take the cover, and I knew it was worth doing because I knew I'd be able to sell the original cover. And so that was always kind of part of my page rate. I'd never do the interiors because they didn't pay anything for interiors. Creative Faye, finding all my comics in the bargain box. I found several of your comics on Read All Comics for free, Sludge, Power Cube, Chicks, and Garbage Man. And there she has an icon of Gary Martin right there, drawn by me, inked by Gary from Sludge number 4, if I'm not mistaken. GJ says it was Dark Horse Presents issue number 21. I knew it was in the 20s. Spaceman says Aaron's Red Sonja would be amazing. It was pretty good. It was pretty good. And that's when I first started coloring. It was when I first did those Red Sonja covers. So I did a what was the series with Ash? You know, the guy with the chainsaw for an arm. Army of Darkness. I did a cover for Army of Darkness for them, for Dynamite, and I colored it. And that was the very first cover I ever colored. Very simple, straightforward coloring. And then I did some Red Sonja covers. I think I did one, and then it was very open. The style was very open, almost like coloring book, because I wanted to go in and do stuff with the coloring. And then I did a mini series of Red Sonja covers after that single issue of Red Sonja. So you can find all that stuff out there. Marby Dog, canceled is the new black. Yes, it is. Kit Carter, Gonad the Barbarian. Art of Right, Kit Carter and Gonad the Boy Barbarian comic would be titillating. Oh, brother. Okay. Anyway, let's move along. Well, enough about me. Let's move along and do what have I got here? Did I upload that? There it is. Here it is. Let's do this. Stanley Meltzoff. Who the heck is that? Let's find out. He is an illustrator, or was. He's no longer with us. Poor Stanley. Here's the thing on Stanley. Stanley was born in 1917. So, and he passed away in 2006. So it sounds like he lived I'm not going to do the math off the top of my head, but is that 89 years old, something like that? He did all right for himself there. The one thing I found interesting about this guy is his book covers and magazine covers I thought were pretty dynamic. This is the Ray Bradbury's The Illustrated Man. Now, I don't know if this is a book cover or an illustration in a magazine. Kind of looks like Tor Johnson, doesn't it, coming out of there? We've got the sensational, is that the bearded lady right there? Is that what's going on there? This guy's obviously Lurch. Little midget there. But very dramatic. Check this out. Look at how dynamic this scene is here. I mean, this guy's got some comic book chops. Let's just put it that way. So Stanley was born in New York City to Father Nathan. He was a cantor at the Manhattan Synagogue. How about that? He graduated from City College of New York and became an instructor at the Pratt Institute, another great historical art college or art institute. Serving in Italy during World War II. He was an artist and a journalist for the U.S. military magazine Stars and Stripes. He also created visuals for Pup Tent Poets, a paperback of soldiers' verses. How about that? Returning to New York City after the war, he spent years alternating between teaching and art before becoming a full-time illustrator in 1949. Now, during the 50s, Meltzoff created dozens of paperback covers for novels by Robert Heinlein, or is that Heinlein, and others, and did artwork for Madison Avenue advertising agencies. He painted covers and interior spreads for magazines including Life, National Geographic, the Saturday Evening Post, and The Atlantic, providing covers also to Scientific American. So quite diverse range of subject matter. This I thought was a really interesting piece of work right here. Looks like little action in the old brothel, maybe, or something, some such thing as that. So you got this guy, behind the curtains there. And then you got your women here highlighted, and all this other is kind of in shadow. But it's interesting how he is highlighted there in the background through this opening in the curtains. Very, very well-designed piece. And this is interesting. He's got this, I'm not sure what picture he's recreating here up on the wall, but that's naked lady. Is that the Goya one where that like demon is crawling over this naked lady or something? I don't know, but it's interesting that a lot of times when I put a picture in a background, I'll just kind of like make it like a landscape or something simple so I can just kind of knock it out and move on. But he obviously gave some thought about what he was putting in this frame back here. But here you got some naked chick here. Some other girls. It makes me kind of think that maybe it's a brothel, but I'm not 100% certain. Maybe they're just dancing girls. I have no idea, because this guy looks more like a barker than a pimp. So, but anyway, interesting illustration. Anyway, okay, so then this is where his stuff gets interesting, where it kind of takes a turn. He became a fish and wildlife painter. Look at how cool that is. Look at the shark up here, underwater scene, some fish down here. He started doing what I thought, or I think, were really dramatic fish paintings, for lack of a better way to describe it. So this is with the advent of low-cost color photography and reproduction of the early 1960s, Meltzoff began painting saltwater game fish in their undersea environments. His marine life art ran in such magazines as Sports Illustrated, Field and Stream, Gray's Sporting Journal, Outdoor Life, Sporting Classics, Sports, Afield, and Wildlife Art. So basically what this is saying, or as I'm reading what this is saying, or what I think I'm reading that this is saying, is that painters and illustrators are starting to be replaced with photography in the 60s. So what did he do? He moved someplace or moved his artwork thematically to someplace where they would not be getting good photography for, and someplace they would still need Illustrator. Now they don't, but back then they didn't have underwater photography like they do now. And so he says, I'll just move everything underwater and I'll fill this void with my artwork. And the great thing about it is it's great design. This is not boring mall painting stuff, like landscapes or whatever. These are really dynamic and interesting fish paintings. I mean, check this out. He seemed to be in love with swordfish, excuse me. There it is. Look at how interesting that is. How dynamic that is. You got these fish coming at you, baby. That's what really kind of, when I saw these, I was like, these do not look like your typical wildlife paintings. These are really, really interesting. Okay, now check this one out. These are all oil paintings, of course. Look at that shark. Look at the water. Look at this whole thing. You got the fish coming at you this way, shark going away from us, and all that sort of lighting this is really cool. I mean, I'm not someone that would go out and buy a painting of a fish. I mean, I'd buy the artwork to Jaws, the movie poster, which was stolen, by the way. So it's probably available on the black market, but out of my price range regardless. But if I had the money, this is something I would buy. It's just really, really interesting. But wait, there's more. Check this out. If you want high seas adventure with a swordfish, how about that? I mean, you could not get this photograph. This has to be out of his imagination. It would be impossible to get this photograph. This is a boat back here hidden behind these waves. I mean, if you're getting this photograph, you're drowning in 10 seconds after you took this shot. This is Stanley Meltzoff, Meltzoff. And there is a book on his artwork. Check it out on Amazon. Look at this. This is not a typical angle that you would do a painting from with that fish. This is just like taking something as mind-numbing as trout fishing, or is that steelhead maybe? Might be steelhead salmon. But anyway, and turning into a really dynamic piece of artwork. I would never even think to approach it from this angle. Oh, I'm not done yet. Look at that. I mean, where even is that? I mean, it's got to be made up, right? Mucky says a combination of photos and doodles and sketches. Robert has a web page where he broke down his wildlife paintings from concept to completion. Robert, who are we talking about? So you guys are talking about something in the chat or someone in the chat. Freaka Boogie says, would love to have seen him do some creepy and Vaporella covers. Indeed. I bet they would have been really, really good. Now, this is not a fish painting, but it is really dramatic. And again, you can see this kind of low angle, the drama he puts into this. This is not typical. I'm telling you guys, this is not typical. So you got this raft down here in the foreground, which is really not our focus, but it's a little bit below the camera level. Your camera eye is probably about right here. But again, it's just so interesting, the design and the layout of this piece. Now, they say the work he's most famous for was doing this telephone, Yellow Pages telephone book, telephone directory book cover in 1976. So it would have been our bicentennial year. And so this is, according to my very limited research, this is his most famous piece of work. And I guess it would make sense because we all would have received, if you were alive in 75, 76, which I was 11 years old in 1975, 12 in 1976. So you'd get your phone book from good old Ma Bell, and they had the same cover throughout the entire United States. They would just put the different city on here, like, this is New York, but this would have been Portland for me, but it would have the same cover on it. So I guess it makes sense. It's our nation's 200th birthday, the telephone's 100th birthday. There you go. Look at that. You got Abe Lincoln on the phone here. Shirley Temple. Is that Rockwell? I don't know. Got some Eskimo. Roy Rogers. That's what's his face? That's Norman Rockwell. That's Frederick Douglass. I knew it. Jefferson, some chick. Statue of Liberty on the phone. Astronauts, another chick. Ben Franklin. I mean, I do remember this, getting this phone book and going, oh, this is cool. So if you haven't heard of Stanley Meltzoff before, maybe you will remember this phone book from 1976. But anyway, that's our look at Stanley Meltzoff today. Always love discovering artists that, especially from the golden era of illustration, that I was unaware of before. And yeah, Rockefeller. That's what I thought. It was one of the Rockefellers in there. Angela, were you not listening? Were you eating chocolate and not listening? From what I gathered, commercial illustration was starting to be taken up by cheap illustration in the 60s. So he moved to a field of art where they didn't have the access to photograph, and that would have been fish underwater in the 60s. That makes perfect sense to me. Now, I don't know if that's exactly why, but that's what it sort of intimated at as I was reading his biography. So there you go, Angela. Michael. Aaron, have you met Angela before? Yeah, she brought me a box of chocolates at Washington State SummerCon. Kevin Thomas, you should have drawn various fish on the phone, then it would have been a 10 out of a 10. That's good. I like that. Yeah, so actually that's, oh, here we go. 9.4. What you, I feel like there's, I mean, I get the 9.4, but I feel like there's something else I missed in the chat that goes along with that 9.4 for the way it's being used. No, I'm thinking about going back to the Washington State SummerCon this year in Puyallup, Washington, just to get more chocolate from Angela Curry. There you go. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Oh, okay. Well, I saw Ethan put 9.4 in there, but I don't know. Is he? I assume that when all those guys showed up in the chat, they were still live and they were, you know, what do they call it? EFApping me. Angela, EVS wants you to come over to his channel so you can get more super chat money. Now, see, here's the problem. If Ethan happens to be EFApping at the moment, I just found out about his stream like 2 minutes before I went on. And so I didn't know that was going on. And my daughter is leaving tomorrow to go back to school. So I can't just go on and stream for another like 3 or 4 hours. I got to spend some time with her. So, but he'll probably forgive me. Oh, Creative Face says she got me a mod pizza card to give me this year. Wow. I can't wait. Oh, so he's over? So he came here after he ended? Okay. All right. Okay. I wondered, because I have over 300 people watching right now. I was going, well, surely Ethan can't still be streaming and that many people watching this. So you're sending me chocolates? So you're not even going to wait till SummerCon? You're going to send them to me? I am on board for that. Pity Moss says, Aaron always equals Sundays and Wednesdays. Thank you very much. Rick Johnson says, Aaron, hope Shelly's doing well. Wishing you both a great 2025. Thank you so much. She's hanging in there. Pain management is always a difficult thing. Wait a minute. No, or is it no? He came, then ended after. Okay. All this chocolate talk's making me hungry. So, Mike McMahon, Happy New Year, Aaron and Shelly. Thank you very much. But anyway, yeah. So pain management is always the thing with Shelly. She's got a couple of things that her lower back and her shoulder, and to go along with her headaches that we're trying to manage and get taken care of. So it's been unfortunate few months for better part of a year for her, but we're hoping here that she'll be joining us again soon. Eric the Guapo says, I'm sending you Tums. I eat Tums like candy. I got heartburn like crazy. Blue Boy, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, Aaron. Thanks for the work you do, and I'm excited for the next Wraith book. Hey, thank you. Appreciate that, man. It's not a tumor. Okay. Well, I always hate to, be at the end of the show when we've got our biggest audience, but I guess that's just how things work out. But we're not at the end. We're near the end. And that means it's time for us to go hunting for Sasquatch. So last week, I sadly had to point out that 2 men died in the woods in Washington looking for Bigfoot. And maybe it's insensitive to bring it up again, but as our good friend Joe Biden would say, come on, man. Anyway, what a way to go. Especially since you can find as much evidence for Bigfoot on the interwebs as you can out in the woods. Now, this first shot, I like to call Bigfoot standing. Now, this allegedly is a photograph a hiker took. I am somewhat skeptical of the, well, I guess it's not a film, it's an actual photograph, but it's just kind of posing there for him. And then you kind of wonder, is that like a tree stump that just looks like a dude with long hair? And why can't people get their photographs in focus, So they freeze it, then they close in, and it's like, are we supposed to be able to tell anything from this? I mean, it appears that his eyes are right here, and they got hair flowing here. There's his arm, right? There's his, well, and but yeah. I mean, far be it from me to be a skeptic, but couldn't this just as easily be a faked photo where they put in fuzzy image of somebody after they took the photo? Or it could be a tree stump. It could be a guy, a buddy in a costume. It could be a lot of things. And we can't tell anything because of the fuzziness. Now, it could be that the Bigfoot is transitioning between different realms, right? So he's like fading in and out, right, when you photograph him. And this is a theory we've talked about on this show, that maybe transitioning isn't the word I wanted to use there. But he's a interdimensional being that is phasing in and out, and that's why we can't get a clear photograph of him. Eric says there are these giant versions of chimpanzees out there, supposedly just smaller than a gorilla. Maybe it's one of those. Yeah, but that's like in the woods. That would be in a jungle setting. It wouldn't be like, the woods of Washington or someplace. Spaceman, of course, he lives in the woods. Why wouldn't he be a hippie? That makes perfect sense to me. Angela's going a little next level here. Looks like Uric Hay from Lord of the Rings. Uric Hay. I don't know who that is. Pity Maw, troglodyte hippie. Might be onto something there. Kevin Thomas says the magnetic field that he emits messes with the camera focus just like Magneto. Now that's what I want. I want intelligent scientific explanations for what we're seeing. Yeah, Paul Taylor says one of the orcs. Yes, okay. Or the troll. Now Eric's saying it's one of the trolls. Now he's saying it's one of the orcs. Make up your mind. It's an orc. Okay, we're going to go with that. All right, now another photo, but this one's at least in focus. Oh, excuse me for yawning. This is really interesting. I shouldn't be yawning. So we got this guy back here. You see his eyes right here and his nose right there and his furry torso here, strategically hidden behind these branches. But interesting nonetheless. Although, again, here we are looking at potential Bigfoot without it looking similar to any other Bigfoot pictures that we've seen. These guys need to get together and get a consistent look to the character. I think that would make these photos believable, because if you have 1,000 Bigfoot photos and each one of them looks different, then we're assuming that 999 of them at least are fake and one of them might be authentic, because these guys would look like bears or whatever. Black bears all look the same. Grizzly bears all look the same. Sure, they have little differences, but Bigfoot would pretty much look the same. And I'm just not getting that. I'm not getting that vibe. Spaceman says that's Kelsey. Skull Nasher says that's just Kelsey out for a smoke. We did do a thing on megalodons once, Marcus. We did when I was doing a variety of. Whenever I can't find enough Bigfoot information or new Bigfoot information, I go to other cryptids, and we did a whole show on megalodons actually once, or a whole segment on megalodons, not the entire show. Eric Boyd says gummy bears look different. Come on, man, do they? They're different colors, but they look the same by the same manufacturer anyway. And what we're seeing here is we have Bigfoot being created by many manufacturers, and they can't decide on a look. Woodland megalodons are more rare, indeed. Ron Martin says I can hear Creedence Clearwater playing in the background. Yeah, I'm kind of getting that Deliverance vibe here. This may be less of a Bigfoot and more of a Cajun living in the wilderness, perhaps. I don't know. But the mystery continues. Okay, here we actually have some moving pictures. Let's see if they move us in any particular direction. Here we go. This is standing Bigfoot again. Okay, so no, actually, I think this is just a photograph. All right, do you see him? Do you see him? Do you see him? There's his head right there. There's his eyes, nose, mouth, kind of a monkey head. And he's like 10 feet tall. His shoulders, though, very narrow shoulders. He's kind of pear-shaped, actually. So don't see anything there. Don't see anything there. Still waiting. Still waiting. Still don't see anything. Now I see it. See, there he is. There's his arm right there. Now, of course, they're saying, well, this could be a guy in a costume, but it's like 10 feet tall. How could it be a guy in a costume? Well, he's not moving. So it could be a guy on stilts. It could just be something that they built, which to me looks more probable, because he's just standing there very sort of, I don't know, like a statue. Whereas, granted, it is a photograph, but you would think you would capture him in a little bit of movement or have a little bit of posture to him. And this looks like it's just kind of a straight up and down. We built this thing and threw a rug over it and shot a fuzzy picture. Yeah, statuesque is exactly. JG Martinez says that's fake. Here we go. Creative Face says there is a park in Washington that has a tall wooden statue of Paul Bunyan that looks like that Bigfoot. Wouldn't surprise me. What's really bothering me about this is the narrowness of the shoulders. For something that big would have much broader shoulders, I would think. Eric Boyd says that is just a burnt out tree, and you might be right. Dale says no. I think it's real. But yeah, this could be one of those things where it's a big tree trunk or something, and you go in and, with Photoshop, put a few highlights here and there, put some shading here that make it look like it's, a human. There's a lot of things you can do. That's why we can't trust these blurry photographs. We need more evidence. We need more concrete evidence to convince us of what we're seeing. Okay, here we go. Here's our this is a skunk ape in is this in Florida? I think this is in Yucca, Florida. And that was apparently taken just this year. So let's watch this. This is actually, there's some movement here, I believe. Here we go. Oh, the camera's moving. There he goes. There. Oh, he's moving around back there. Now, I have to admit, I kind of like this. I'll tell you why. Okay, it's kind of in focus, but he's hidden behind trees. Now you would expect the the skunk ape to be in pretty thick foliage. You know, you're in the jungle, whatever, and Florida, there's a lot of this kind of swampy stuff. So it makes sense that he would be back maybe farther into the swamp than you would want to go. Um, and I also like the movement, which we don't really get. Now watch him, he's sitting here. So let's assume that this is his shoulder, I think, here, and this is the head up here. Now I like how this arm reaches up right there. Okay, so his head's here. This is his back. That's his arm swinging forward. So he's sitting down. Maybe here's the camera guy and gets up. I kind of like that. I kind of like that action there. And then he starts to kind of go off the other direction. Look at his arms are swinging around. There's a little bit of performance going on here. This is what I'm looking for. Now, it's not a clear shot, so we can't see enough of anything to draw any conclusion about the costume, but it does look pretty thick backed, doesn't it, right here? And it's kind of his back is kind of rolled over, hunched over. Maybe is that what we're seeing right there, maybe? And then he kind of comes back this way. So he looks very big and bulky, which I kind of like that. Right here, he looks kind of bulky. I don't know about you guys, but I kind of like this one. Right here again, as he stands up, that arm swings up like a big old monkey or something. So he was sitting at that tree, he's been disturbed, and he kind of, look at that big arm, that left arm is up. It looks like, it's not just hanging at his side like he's walking to Walmart. And then it is there though, but when he's managing his way through the foliage. And the other thing you got to ask yourself, if you've ever lived in Florida, which I have, if you're going out there in a costume, there's like snakes and all sorts of stuff that might kill you out there. So it's a pretty ballsy move. Now, granted, this could be staged in a park or something where they know the terrain. It just looks like it's, out in the middle of nowhere. But I'm just saying there's a lot of elements here that I kind of like about this video. Yeah, the shake is always bad. That's always a dead giveaway that something's not right. Daryl Wayne agrees with me. He says that's a decent effort. Well, that's always the question, right? Why would you take just a 5-second video, or why wouldn't you film this thing for 20 minutes if you could, and then if you were afraid of getting killed by it, if you thought it was real or whatever, if it were hypothetically real, why then wouldn't you go in there and look for more evidence? But again, for a couple of dudes staging this, that's a pretty good effort, I think. I'm okay with this. Gen X Catholic says shaking. Wait a minute. Shaking is natural when exposed to the majesty of the foot. Von Dib says, why not just throw rocks and insult Bigfoot? Pretty sure something would happen. You're probably right. Creative Face says, nah, it's too stiff. He's too stiff. Okay, she's not buying it. Pity Moss says, yeah, he's walking like a human, still too stiff. Yeah, I can see that. But I think that I think you got you turn that into my class. I'm going to give you some kudos for that. Because there's enough there to make you think you're seeing something, but not enough to know if you're getting faked. But then it's also put in a situation where okay, this is a skunk ape. We're out in the swamps and there's all sorts of trees everywhere. And you're getting some decent movement out of the character. Yeah, I think it's not a bad effort. Not a bad effort. And if it is somebody in a costume out in Florida, that is sweaty and gross. So, my kudos to them. All righty. All right, folks, there you go. We have been on for a healthy 2 hours at this point, and I want to thank you all for joining me, as I always do. Let me remind everybody that there is, of course, this wonderful campaign called Wraith of God, Fear Hollow that I happen to be writing and drawing. It is the third in a series of graphic novels featuring the Wraith of God, a superhero type monster hunter in the Old West who believes he's on a mission from God to not be like the Blues Brothers, but to stop monsters. And that's what he and his partner Esther do. In this case, they're facing some old fears and an old nemesis in the Headless Horseman. I just went back in, rewrote some scenes. I was having trouble with the middle part of the script. I didn't think it was as good as it could be. And I've been in it the last 2 days fixing it up. I'm really happy with it now. Now, of course, I'm not there drawing wise yet, so I don't have to redraw anything, but fleshed out some things. As I talked about with Mike Barron last week, and when you're writing a script, a lot of times you kind of go by intuition and say, God, this needs something. This is falling flat. This isn't working. And I had that feeling. And so I went back in and sort of, okay, what am I missing here? And then you start to break down what you've got and say, well, this character isn't developed enough. This motivation is not good enough or believable or whatever. And then you go in and start thinking about that. Then you start course correcting and saying, okay, yeah. And then when you change that, then maybe it alters something down the line. And a lot of times alters it for the better. So then you got to make changes down at the end of the line. And I just feel that the script now is much fuller, much more layered, much more meaningful, and I'm really happy with it. And so anyway, probably be rewriting some more, which I always do, usually right up to the last minute, but a lot of times that's dialogue. But at this point, I'm rewriting I'm still messing around with different scenes and changing stuff before I get to them to draw them. I want to make sure they're done because I have changed stuff after I've drawn it, but I'd prefer not to do that. Yeah, so anyway, there's 4 cover options. This is the EC variant. This is the Marvel 1972 box cover variant. The painted cover by Chris Stevens. And here's some pages from the inside that are all colored already. So we have the witch facing off at the very beginning. I mean, we're right into the action, folks. The witch, who's not so old, the witch is facing off with a character called the Master. And they both have a history with the Wraith. And so good quality colors there by Jason Wright. This is the stretch goal of importance. This is 100K. If we don't hit 100K, this will be the first time a Wraith of God project has not hit 100K, which makes me wonder what's going on. Are people losing interest? I don't know. We'll see what happens. But our next stretch goal, we're just 7,000 away from 80,000, which is another trading card. As I'm doing this elaborate trading card set that continues to grow with low Prestiverse characters. A lot of fun for me, and hopefully for you guys if you're into collecting that stuff. Pity Maw's like, is there any way to bring the Garbage Man t-shirts back on your website? I got a couple left. I think I have a couple mediums left. If anybody's a medium out there, but I don't know. I'm going to bring back the Keown Werewolf shirt, and I'm going to do a t-shirt with the Bisley Bloodhunters cover. And we'll get that up in the next week or so. And there's going to be some more original artwork going up supposedly tomorrow. If I can get it done tonight, we'll see. But very shortly, there'll be some original art going up on here as well. But anyway, you've got the Wraith of God new Art Nouveau print. The Wraith of God Roughs, which is layouts, 48 pages of layouts for the graphic novels. You can kind of pull the curtain back and see behind the scenes. This comes signed and numbered, of course, so very limited on this. Don't expect to get copies of this after it's published, because I'm only going to print enough to cover damage, and that's it. Nightclub Shot Glass, which is the 4th in a series of 6 shot classes. We've already done the Wraith, Garbage Man, Kit Carter, and now the Nightclub. And the Nightclub, if you're saying, who's the Nightclub? Well, then you should check out Wraith of God Blood Hunters and the Garbage Man graphic novel, or pardon me, the trade paperback of Garbage Man. That will enlighten you to the Nightclub. The commemorative clay poster set, clay poster poker chip set, clay poker chip set right there, and the back issues of Wraith 1 and 2 right there. This stuff is also, a lot of this stuff is available on my website. So you can find a link in the description of this video to take you right to this campaign, or a link that'll take you right to my website that you can get, like Kit Carter, Planet Doom, graphic novel, if you missed that. There's a lot of prints, poster, sketchbooks, things like that on there that you might be interested in. So be sure and check that out as well. I want to thank everybody for joining me. I want to thank, hang on a second. Deb Koff-Schnelly, 2 pounds, Aaron Lepresti, 9.4. We read that. Leg Kick for $2 says, I found an FF122.90 for $90. Okay, well, 122.90 is not the same as 122.9.4 Leg Kick. And I don't go under 9.2 on like 70s books, because they're just available. So it's like, why go for a 9.4 when I can get, or a 9.0 when I can get a 9.2? Sequential. Oh, we already got that one. How did I miss Leg Kick? Anyway, so thank you for that, Sequential. Thank you guys all for the super chats. Thank you for your attendance. I appreciate it very much. Couldn't do the show without you. We're back to regular programming this week. So what's today? Sunday, Monday. Tomorrow we've got Comicsgate Kings, which has been going on anyway. Tuesday, Professionals, I'll be hosting. You don't want to miss that. And then Wednesday, it is the return of Graybeard's Studio. So be looking for the poll on Monday for that. So there you have it. Thank you guys. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening. Appreciate you guys very much. And we'll see you next time right here on Aaron Live.